Hello, everybody. Today we're going to pick up where we left off with An Esoteric Cosmology by Rudolf Steiner. The website is rsarchive.org. We're on Chapter 6, Yoga in the East and West, Part 2. And real quick before we get going, I just want to say that Steiner's views on yoga had changed over time. His body of work is just immense. This guy put together so many lectures and books, which mainly are based off his lectures. And his body of work is so gigantic that unless you've listened to his truly foundational pieces, which, initially I thought this was one of them. This is not the best one that I could have started with. So I wasn't all the way familiar with this particular book. I've read a lot of Steiner's stuff. And when I first picked this one up, as I was flipping through it, because I've got the hard copy too, I was looking through it and I thought, this will be a pretty good beginner book to just kind of read through for people who aren't familiar with Steiner. But I was completely wrong about that. I should have looked at it a little bit harder before I started reading it. But I mean, it's fine. It's all good material. If you just kind of take this one and file it like in the back of your memory, and then we're going to cover some better ones, in my opinion, that kind of break down the teaching so they're not quite so esoteric. One thing about Steiner is that, in his multitude of lectures, he sometimes takes for granted that people already know what he's talking about or know the concepts and the fundamentals of how everything fits together, because he kind of does it in a gradual process. And unless you've read his previous lectures on how everything fits together, it can be kind of difficult to follow along. But don't let that stop you. Just kind of file this in the back of your mind, and then we'll go through. I think the next one I'm going to cover is called Rosicrucian Wisdom, and that's also part of Steiner's collected works. And I think that one does a better job of kind of breaking down the fundamental understandings a little better, because he kind of just jumps into stuff in this book. But we're going to continue on. I don't want to take up too much more time here, so let's just kind of jump into it. An Esoteric Cosmology, Chapter 6, Yoga in the East and West, Part 2. The first thing to realize is that yoga is not a sudden, convulsive event, but a process of gradual training, inner transformation. It does not consist, as is often supposed, in a series of external adjustments and ascetic practices. Everything must run its course in the depths of the soul. It is often said that the first steps of initiation are fraught with perils and grave dangers. There is a measure of truth in this. Initiation, or yoga, is a coming to birth of the higher soul, which lies latent in every human being. And that's another thing I want to interject real quick. When Steiner's talking about yoga here, he's not just talking about like the Hindu practice of yoga. He's using it in a more broad, generic sense as an initiation into the spiritual realities of life. So each kind of culture has its own version of this yogic initiation. So, okay, to continue. The astral body is faced with dangers analogous to those attending physical birth. There is a travail before the divine soul comes forth from the desire nature of man. The difference is that the birth of spirit is a much longer process than that of physical birth. Let us take another comparison. The higher soul is closely linked with the animal soul. By their fusion, the passions are tempered, spiritualized, and dominated according to the strength of man's intelligence and will. This fusion is of benefit to man, but he pays for it by the loss of clairvoyance. Imagine to yourself a green liquid produced by a combination of blue and yellow elements. If you succeed in separating them, the yellow will descend and the blue will rise to the surface. Something analogous happens when, through yoga, the animal soul is separated from the higher soul. The latter acquires clairvoyant vision. The former is left to its own devices if it has not been purified by the self, and it is then given over to its passions and desires. This often happens in the case of mediums. The guardian of the threshold protects man from this danger. The first condition requisite for the initiate is that his character shall be strong, and that he shall be master of his passions. Yoga must be preceded by a rigorous discipline and the attainment of certain qualities, the first of which is inner calm. Ordinary morality is not enough, for this relates merely to man's conduct in the outer world. Yoga is related to the inner man. If it is said that compassion suffices, our answer will be, compassion is good and necessary, but has nothing directly to do with occult training. Compassion without wisdom is weak and powerless. The task of the occultist, of the true initiate, is to change the direction of his life's current. The actions of man today are impelled and determined by his feelings, that is to say, by impulses from the outer world. Actions determined by space and time have no significance. Space and time must be transcended. How can we achieve this? 1. Control of thought. We must be able to concentrate our thought upon a single object and hold it there. 2. Control of actions. Our attitude to all actions, be they trivial or significant, must be to dominate, regulate, and hold them under the control of our will. They must be the outcome of inner initiative. 3. Equilibrium of soul. There must be moderation in sorrow and in joy. Goethe has said that the soul who loves is, till death, equally happy, equally sad. The occultist must bear the deepest joy and the deepest sorrow with the same equanimity of the soul. 4. Optimism. The attitude which looks for the good in everything. Even in crime and in seeming absurdity, there is some element of good. A Persian legend says that Christ once passed by the corpse of a dog and that his disciples turned from it in disgust. But the Christ said, "Lo, the teeth are beautiful." 5. Confidence. The mind must be open to every new phenomenon. We must never allow our judgments to be determined by the past. 6. Inner balance, which is the result of these preparatory measures. Man is then ripe for the inner training of the soul. He is ready to set his feet upon the path. 7. Meditation. We must be able to make ourselves blind and deaf to the outer world and our memories of it, to the point where even the shot of a gun does not disturb. This is the prelude to meditation. When this inner void has been created, man is able to receive the prompting of his inner being. The soul must then be awakened in its very depths by certain ideas able to impel it towards its source. In the book, Light on the Path, there are 4 sentences which may be employed in meditation and inner concentration. They are very ancient and have been used for centuries by initiates. Their meaning is profound and many-sided. Before the eyes can see, they must be incapable of tears. Before the ear can hear, it must have lost its sensitiveness. Before the voice can speak in the presence of the masters, it must have lost the power to wound. Before the soul can stand in the presence of the masters, its feet must be washed in the blood of the heart. These 4 sentences have magical power, but we must bring them to life within us. We must love them as a mother loves her child. This, the first stage of training, has the power to develop the etheric body, and particularly its upper part, which corresponds to the head. Having trained the upper part of the etheric body, the disciple must begin to control the systems of breathing and blood, the lungs and heart. In remote ages of earthly evolution, man lived in the waters and breathed through gills like fish. Sacred literature indicates the time when he began to breathe the airs of the heaven. Genesis says, God breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. The disciple must purify and bring about changes in his breathing system. All development proceeds from chaos to harmony, from lack of rhythm to rhythm, eurythmy. Rhythm must be brought into the instincts. In ancient times, the various degrees of initiation were called by particular names. First degree, the raven, he who remains at the threshold. The raven appears in all mythologies. In the Edda, he whispers into the ear of Wotan what he sees afar off. Second degree, the hidden scholar, or the occultist. Third degree, the warrior, struggle and strife. Fourth degree, the initiate bears the name of his people. He is a Persian or Greek because his soul has grown to a point where it includes the soul of his people. Sixth degree, the initiate is a sun hero or sun messenger because his progress is as harmonious and rhythmic as that of the sun. Seventh degree, the initiate is a father because he has the power to make disciples of men and to be the protector of all. He is the father of the new being, the twice born in the risen soul. The sun represents the vivifying movement, and rhythm of the planetary system. The legend of Icarus is a legend of initiation. Icarus has attempted to reach the sun sphere prematurely, without adequate preparation, and is cast down. The new rhythm of breathing produces a change in the blood. Man is purified to the point of himself being able to generate blood without the aid of plant nourishment. Prolonged meditation changes the nature of the blood. Man begins to exhale less carbon. He retains a certain amount and uses it for building up his body. The air he exhales is pure. He gradually becomes able to live on the forces contained in his own breath. He accomplishes an alchemical transmutation. And let me interject right here real quick. There's a book of Steiner's. It's free on YouTube. You can get audio versions of a lot of Steiner's books on Rudolf Steiner Press Audio, I want to say is the channel. Excellent audio books on there of Steiner. And one is called The Blood is a Very Special Fluid. I think that's the title of it. And I don't think it's very long, but it's a very interesting lecture talking about the real importance of the blood and how it became, as we evolved through the various times, what its true spiritual significance is and whatnot. It's very insightful. Anyway, what are the higher stages of yoga? The initiate finds calm within his soul, astral vision, where everything is a symbolic image of reality is acquired. This astral vision, which arises during the sleeping state, is still incomplete. 2. Dreams cease to be chaotic. Man understands the relation between dream symbolism and reality. He gains control of the astral world, and then the inner astral light awakens in the soul who perceives other souls in their real being. 3. Continuity of consciousness is set up between the waking state and the sleeping state. Astral life is reflected in dreams, but in deep sleep, pure sounds arise. The soul experiences the inner words issuing from all beings as a mighty harmony. This harmony is a manifestation of reality. It was called by Plato and Pythagoras the harmony of the spheres. This is not a poetic metaphor, but a reality experienced by the soul as a vibration emanating from the soul of the world. Goethe, who was initiated between the periods of his life at Leipzig and Strasbourg, knew of the harmony of the spheres. He expressed it at the beginning of Faust in words spoken by the archangel Raphael. The sun makes music as of old, amid the sister spheres of heaven. On its predestined circle rolls, with roar of thunder. In deep sleep, the initiate hears these sounds as if they were notes of trumpets and the rolling of thunder. And to speak to that, that is just one thing that I've noticed through the study of initiatory practices, studies of the mystery schools, studies of the esoteric orders. When you really first begin this study, you notice all these symbols and metaphors. A lot of people get into this study by first studying symbolism and symbolic language that's used in the Bible and other scriptures. And you begin to understand that a lot of this stuff is just symbol and metaphor. And I guess I would say if you go too far that way, you can think it's all just a metaphor for, say, the raising of consciousness or, excuse me, or just, I guess as Jung would kind of say, Jung's particular view, Carl Jung, his particular view on this is, he speaks to it through psychological development. And that is part of it. It is definitely a part of it. But the more you study this stuff, you start realizing that there is a certain literalism to it as well. And you only gain that understanding when you start seeing all these different facets of the puzzle come together. When you start understanding how the evolution of the physical world from the spiritual world actually manifested in reality as the cosmos, and then as an extension of the cosmos, we as humans, animals, plants, and whatnot, developed as almost a reflection of those energies. Not almost a reflection, that is what it is. So a certain metaphorical value generally is understood in the beginning, and then as time goes on, it kind of comes around full circle, and then you realize, oh wow, not only are these metaphorical for certain processes, but then the more I study it, I realize that there's actually a deeper level of literalism to it. Not to say that it's literally historically accurate when you're reading a piece of scripture. They weren't really intended to be that, but they are historically accurate in a broader sense, if that makes any sense at all. I'm going to leave it right there, just kind of ponder on those ideas a little bit. And like I said, we're going to get into a book called Rosicrucian Wisdom. And then from there, I think we might get into Paul Foster Case, Esoteric Keys of Alchemy. Haven't decided whether I want to go with that one or maybe one by Max Heindel, because he's another really good Rosicrucian author. But I want to get some more fundamental Rosicrucian teachings out there, which, as I mentioned a million times, the one I'm reading right now, I thought would be more of a fundamental breakdown. It's really not. It's kind of, some of the concepts are probably kind of hard to grasp for people just getting into this, and that's kind of what I wanted to do, is just make a playlist or a channel for people who are just getting into this. So file this one back in the memory cabinet, and the concepts will begin to make more sense as we go and as we cover some of the more fundamental stuff that Steiner has out there. All right, I don't want to drag this too long, so we're just going to cut it off right here. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you want to, go ahead, like and subscribe. I don't do this for those reasons, but of course, spreading the word is always welcome. So that's up to you. Like and subscribe, share if you'd like. If you know somebody who would benefit from these readings or who's interested in this type of stuff. And that's it. We will catch you next time. Thanks for listening. Take care.